She couldn't see the world around her, but she felt it. The stares, the whispers, the weight of judgment. A blind black woman, standing in a place that should have been safe, suddenly became the target of hate disguised as authority. One cruel moment, one heartless act, shattered not just her cane, but her dignity. Yet the officer who did it had no idea who was watching or what truth was about to surface. Because sometimes the people we choose to break are the very ones who can break us. Her name was Angela. To most, she was just another face in the crowd. But to those who knew her, she was strength wrapped in kindness. A blind black woman, she had learned to move through the world with quiet determination. Each morning she tapped her white cane along the same familiar sidewalks, listening for the rhythm of the city, the chatter of neighbors, the rumble of buses, the comfort of routine. Life wasn't easy, but Angela had carved out her own kind of independence, one step, one sound at a time. She believed that dignity came not from what she lacked, but from how she carried herself. People often underestimated her, but Angela never let it define her. Her son, her greatest source of pride, was the reason she fought to remain strong. To him, she was more than a mother. She was a symbol of resilience. That day seemed no different. The sun pressed down gently, the street alive with movement, her cane guiding her as always. But in the crowd, eyes followed her, some curious, some indifferent. And then, one pair of eyes narrowed, authority in a uniform, power with no compassion. Angela didn't see it coming, but soon she would feel it, and the world around her would never look the same again.
Angela's steps were steady, her cane tapping gently against the pavement. To her, it was just another afternoon. But to the officer watching from across the street, it was something else entirely. His eyes narrowed, suspicion filling a space where empathy should have been. To him, her slow walk, her searching cane, her skin were not signs of struggle, but of weakness. He moved closer, heavy boots striking the ground with purpose. "Ma'am," he said sharply, his voice cutting through the noise of the street. Angela stopped, her hand tightening on the cane. She tilted her head slightly, trying to place the direction of the sound. "Yes?" she answered softly. But the officer didn't hear her humanity in that word. He saw only defiance. He stepped closer, towering over her, his shadow stretching long across the sidewalk. "That cane," he barked. "Where did you get it?" Angela frowned, confused. "This is mine. It helps me walk." The officer scoffed, a bitter laugh dripping with disdain. "Don't play smart with me. People use these things to hide weapons, to hide drugs." Murmurs rose from the onlookers. Strangers paused, their gazes shifting uneasily. Some shook their heads, others lowered their eyes. Few dared to intervene. Angela's heart pounded. She couldn't see their faces, but she could feel their silence pressing against her chest. Before she could respond, the officer lunged forward. With a swift, merciless motion, he yanked the cane from her hands. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Angela staggered, reaching desperately into the empty air, her balance faltering without her guide. "Stop! Please! I need that!" But the words barely left her mouth before the crack echoed. The officer slammed the cane against the ground, splintering it in two. The sharp snap tore through the air like thunder. Angela flinched, her hands trembling as if the sound had struck her body instead of wood. The crowd grew restless. Whispers turned into protests, yet still no one stepped forward. The officer stood proudly, fragments of the cane at his feet, as if he had won some invisible war. Angela's knees weakened, but she refused to collapse. Her breath came shallow, her dignity clinging to the edge of her voice. Why would you do this?" The officer sneered, shaking his head.
Because people like you always think you can play the victim." The words stung sharper than the act itself. Her world, already in darkness, felt darker still. But in that moment of humiliation, something stirred inside her. A strength that had carried her through years of struggle. And though the officer believed he had broken her, he had no idea of the truth.
Because standing not far away, hidden among the crowd, was someone who saw everything, someone who wouldn't stay silent, someone whose identity would turn this act of cruelty into a storm the officer could never escape. The pieces of Angela's cane lay scattered across the pavement, broken like her trust in the world around her. She stood frozen, her hands trembling in the empty air, searching for something solid to hold on to. But all she felt was the cold grip of humiliation pressing down on her. The officer loomed above, his voice sharp and cruel, spitting words that stripped her of dignity. The crowd swelled, whispers turning into shouts. "That's enough," someone yelled. Phones were raised, recording every second. But the officer didn't care. His hand brushed against his holster, a silent threat hanging heavy in the air. Angela's breath quickened. Fear clawed at her chest. She had lived through discrimination before, but never had it felt this dangerous, this close to shattering her completely.
And then one voice cut through the chaos, steady, commanding. "That's my mother." The crowd shifted, eyes darting toward the figure stepping forward. A young man, calm but fierce, his presence demanding attention. He moved with certainty, his gaze locked on the officer. Gasps rippled as murmurs spread. People recognized him. A name whispered, louder each time, until it echoed through the crowd. "I'm Eaton." The officer's arrogance faltered. His face tightened as the truth settled in. This wasn't just any woman. This wasn't a nameless victim he could silence and walk away from. Her son was someone he could not afford to cross, someone whose influence reached further than his badge could ever stretch. Angela lifted her head, though her eyes could not see. She felt the shift in the air, the power of justice finally standing beside her. The officer, once so certain, now stood exposed. And in that moment, the question hung heavy over everyone watching. Would this act of hate finally bring accountability, or would power protect him once again?
The silence after her son's words was deafening. The officer's grip on control slipped, his authority crumbling in the face of truth. The crowd, once hesitant, now stood taller, emboldened by the presence of someone who could no longer be ignored. Angela felt a hand take hers, steady, familiar. Her son's touch was more than comfort. It was a reminder that she was not alone, not invisible, not powerless. The officer backed away, his voice faltering, excuses spilling into the open air. But no excuse could erase what had been done. The damage was already carved into Angela's heart and into the memory of everyone who stood witness. The broken cane could be replaced. The humiliation could not.
Yet from that moment, Angela's story spread beyond the sidewalk where it began. It lived in the videos shared online, in the conversations sparked in living rooms and classrooms, in the uncomfortable truths it forced people to face. She hadn't asked to be a symbol. She hadn't asked to fight, but her pain became a mirror, a reflection of countless others whose dignity had been shattered in silence. Because this was never just about one woman, one officer, or one cane. It was about the system that allowed it, the silence that excused it, the power that tried to bury it. Angela's question lingers still. Why would you do this? But maybe the real question is ours to answer. How much longer will we allow this? The story is hers, but the choice, now, is ours.